Welcome to the Sheila Mack Show. I'm Sheila Mack, and today we have special guest Jason Baudendistel. Jason is an Amazon #1 best-selling author and serial entrepreneur. He grew up on welfare, yet after some time as a senior marketing executive at 2 different technology startups, one of which he received a buyout offer of $800,000, he missed being a CEO and began his own company. Jason has consulted many entrepreneurs and businesses on their IT strategy and business marketing strategy. Previous clients have included Dell, Financial, Bin, and Go Buy Truck. So welcome to the show, Jason.
It's great to have a chance to chat with you.
Yes, so one of the things that we talk about is related to, the reason I started this show was basically related to my book, Bootstraps and Bootstraps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. This year, we have had so many situations to deal with. And with that, I wanted to have real people sharing real solutions and their real stories about how they bounced back after dealing with a tough situation in their business or personal life. So do you have a story like that to share of a time you went through a tough situation and got back on track?
Yeah, actually, on top of everything that you just shared, 4 years ago, I was defrauded by a Nigerian fraud syndicate for over $100,000. I actually lost everything, had to file for bankruptcy and close my current practice. And it definitely took something to pick myself back up, but currently working my way back towards where I was. And it's not the challenges that come to you in life, it's how you deal with them that shapes you. So.
Very much. So if you're listening to this and you have somebody, how did this happen in this fraud situation?
Basically, at the time, I started having some health problems, and I wasn't able to keep prospecting for my business, and I made the mistake of not having lead flow automated. Mm-hmm. And so finances started getting tight. I started looking for work, and unfortunately, at the same time that happened, someone decided that they saw an opportunity, and basically I ended up getting involved in what was essentially a fake job that they used my information in order to siphon money from my accounts. And then they ran up around $100,000 in cash advances on my credit cards.
Wow. That's something to really look into and really be cautious about anyone you're working with. Check the backgrounds, even when it's a company that's giving you one of these jobs nowadays. Now that everything is work from home, make sure they're going to pay you. And that could happen anytime to anyone. So it's really important to be cautious before you have an issue or difficult situation, especially this year. There's a lot. I mean, I had to replace my credit card twice this year, and I only got gas about twice for my car. So I think it must have been the gas station. And all of a sudden, I see all these charges the next day after I got gas, and I had to cancel the card, cancel all the information, start over again. And I barely left to go get gas twice because we haven't been driving around that much. So it's very interesting. It's sad. It's sad because there's so many good things that people can do to create wealth, especially creative people. So that's really important. Now,
there's so many opportunities, but unfortunately, some people only see taking advantage of others as their only opportunity in life. And I actually had another fraud pop up. Some people are very good at this. What they do is they actually cloak your web address. They cloak your domain host, and then they pretend to be with your domain host. And then they actually pretend that they're a buyer forwarded through your domain host in order to buy a domain. And then they try to get you to pay for a certification, for example, in order to complete the domain sale. So unfortunately, there are a lot of very sophisticated scams out there. You have to be very careful.
Yes, and I don't know, but how many people have had one of their social medias hacked, or you have 3 or 4 other social media names that are close to yours, and it looks like your picture, and who knows what they're doing. But raving fans. Yet if they spent that free time, all that extra time on doing something positive, they could make such a positive change in the world. So it's always a choice. Now, you have an interesting background story on your journey in life. Do you want to share some of the stuff you shared with me on your background story?
Yes. I had probably one of the most humble beginnings that you can ever think of. I was raised by single mom on welfare. I've been homeless twice. I actually, to pay for college, I joined the military and did 4 years Navy, and then came home and realized that unfortunately, some people deal with the stigma that people make assumptions about veterans, and not everyone values them as much as they should. And that made it a struggle to find work. So that's why I started my first company. I co-founded a online legacy company with a man who actually is a serial entrepreneur out in I believe it's the Riverdale area, Sam Beal. And then after a couple of years, moved on to the company that eventually got the buyout offer, which was the social CRM company. We built a LAMP-based software, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP as the backing, and used that to basically create a productivity suite. And that got a pretty good amount of buzz. We had a customer base growing, and unfortunately just didn't have, I guess, full commitment and agreement from everybody on board. And that was one of the reasons why I eventually had to move on to other opportunities. So.
Yes. And the thing is, when you have talents of your own, you can always move on to different opportunities. And this year, a lot of people have been faced with job loss, companies making a drastic cut in your pay because they don't have a choice either due to COVID and all this universal pause. So with that, when you have your own talents, it's almost a gift, because then you create your own company, like you've created your own business now. And tell me a little bit about what you do in that business.
What I do with REBOOTS is I provide content and marketing strategy solutions for business owners, as well as a separate productivity suite. We actually have some staff that provide IT security solutions as well. I've spent most of the last 12 plus years in both fields, because a lot of smaller companies, you double dip, you end up having to learn multiple roles. And because I'm not 100% neurotypical, because I have a very mild form of autism they used to call Asperger's, I tend to obsess over something until I become an expert at it. And whereas most people would only be an expert in one area, I can be an expert in 2 or 3, and probably not sleep as much as I should, but everybody's wired differently. So.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yes, I have one son that actually is very much has that same situation, and he helped network the Staples Center when he was 12 as an intern, built computers. He took his toys apart when he was little, and he's now a chess master and works at a big program and wins tons of money in tournaments. So but there were other situations, as you probably are aware, that were difficult that he had to work on. And, yet he is such a genius in many areas. So I think in life, whoever's listening needs to listen. They tune in when the message comes that they need to hear, I believe. And whoever's listening, if you have a setback, if you have something that people say, oh, that's a difficulty, you know what? It's usually your greatest gift once you learn how to access it and do the best you can with it. The next thing you know, you're so much more ahead, because you're not worried about other people's opinions. You're doing your gift. You're doing your true, authentic self. And that makes all the difference. I had 6 kids. I raised them all. They're all different. They're all college and above now. And they had totally different interests. 3 were mine, 3 I fostered, 2 adopted. So whatever their interest was, parents, I'm telling you, I just let them run with what they loved, what they cared about, because all of them ended up doing exactly that now that they're in college and above in their life. So, and don't worry if you miss a day of school and you go play, because in the long run, it's not going to matter. And I think a lot of parents this year, Jason, are home. I even have one college student home, actually two, one part-time, because the dorms closed. And there's something about parents being concerned that maybe we're not doing as much as the schools, or you've got to just work all the time. When you're in love with what you do, you can't stop doing it. You end up over focusing a little bit, but in a good way. You might stay up late and have fun with it. So maybe there's a subject that they're not going to get the highest grade in, but they're true subjects and passion and focus. They're going to get A's, and they're going to be studying it and looking more deeper into the subject matter. So don't worry about that, because in the end, they're going to see a certificate, and they're not going to care about the one B or C they got during 2020 when they were stuck at home all the time. Yeah,
I think that's the most important part, is if they have like a couple passions, nurture those, because if someone's passionate about something, they're gonna be that much more committed to making something happen with it. And even though I originally didn't plan on getting an entrepreneurship, I've always been passionate about technology and the inner workings of things. And I've pretty much always dabbled with something electronic. And so it just kind of opened that door to, all the different elements of marketing. There's so many technical elements to that, as well as all the different elements of information technology, and basically creating a hybrid so that I could help business owners with both solutions under the same umbrella. So
yes, and honestly, as somebody that runs a couple of businesses myself, one of the things that I learned early on was to delegate and find the experts that can actually help you do something. Now, honestly, it could take me 14 hours to get things done in WordPress. And I've done that a few times when everybody went on holiday or whatever. But to have somebody help you with that, when that's not your favorite thing, that is absolutely, I would rather clean my house. Now that's serious. It's not my favorite thing at all. So, as you get better at something, of course, it's easier. But when you're running a business and you have other priorities, if you're able to delegate, give somebody your taxes. They can do your taxes or your monthly bookkeeping. If you have a website and all that, and you need to do the complicated things that you don't know, instead of having to learn everything, give that over to somebody like Jason, who's an expert in that area. And then you have more time to do your talent and your purpose.
Yeah, I have one free client that's called my mother-in-law, and because she's family, that's different. But yeah, she still pops up from time to time, because she, as far as turning on a computer, she can do just enough to get herself in trouble. So
yes. Yes, I was spoiled for many years when my older son was home, the one that was into technology. I mean, I had to learn everything when he left. How to turn on the TV now with all the different, Apple this, and there's so many different buttons. It's not what it was. And so I had to figure all that out. And it was a learning curve. And, I think when you're doing your passion and your purpose, you'll be drawn to it no matter what. So for me, when I was 18, believe it or not, I was computer programming at JPL in the engineering department because I needed the money. I was a young mom, and it took me, literally, I was a C student. I was the only one that knocked on the door, and that's why they hired me. The other students that were A students were afraid to ask for the job, which is ridiculous. So ask for the job, do the ask, and you usually will get it. Anyway, so I'm working overtime day and night, but not getting paid, to make sure that I keep up with the level of work that I'm supposed to do, because it's not my work. And it turns out I ended up leading safety discussions and different things like that, so that I was able to talk and work with people. And I went toward my talent and put down that programming forever for good. And so that's the difference, is I get paid far more money when I left what wasn't a good fit for me and went and did my talent. And I had more fun. I wasn't dreading going to work. And apparently, so you love what you do, Jason, correct?
yes.
Yes. So at what point do you have advice for businesses that are maybe newer businesses trying to figure out the website and the SEO and all this stuff? At what point should they start looking for help? What suggestions could you give them to get started on creating this online business?
Well, I mean, the bare minimum things you need are a functional website as well as well-established SEO. But if you're not an expert in those fields, some easy ways to kind of get a head start would be to set up a website through WordPress and just use the plugins, the SEO plugins such as Yoast, to kind of shortcut some of that SEO work. It doesn't replace knowing how to do SEO, but it gives you at least some of the basics plug and play so that you can kind of start getting traffic driven to your website.
Okay, what is that called in WordPress exactly? Plugin.
The plugin is for Yoast. They're actually an SEO company, but they have a free plugin that actually allows you to do some of the basics with your SEO.
Wow, I'm gonna write that
And
down.
you could even just look up free SEO plugins, honestly, in WordPress and just use one of those, because you really just need your 5 or 6 main keywords. You want to make sure that you have those targeted inside of your website. You want to make sure you have an updated sitemap, and you can use free XML sitemap generator, which I believe you can Google that, and that will allow you to set up a free sitemap that you can submit to things like Google and Yahoo and Bing. And that will allow you to do a lot of the basics for free or dirt cheap, a worst case scenario. And that kind of lowers your SEO budget so that if you're not at a point financially where you can afford to have professional help, it at least gets your foot in the door as far as driving some traffic to your website.
That's great. And what about, so you still think WordPress is the way to go? Is that
I would say either WordPress, or if you're wanting to have some flexibility, so you have someone that actually is pretty tech savvy. I'm actually pretty fond of Weebly, which is a web builder that allows you to actually make HTML changes and some code changes within the website. Now, I've had competitors use a site called Wix in the past, and one of the things I dislike about Wix is that it doesn't give you that flexibility to make any changes. It's the raw template, and you can't really change anything within the template.
Wow.
So you're pretty much stuck with whatever template they give you, which I'm not a fan of, but obviously if you want to make things a little bit less complicated, it's an option.
So that's if you have something really you just want to get people some basic information, but it's not going to be something you're changing often, or sales on there.
If you're just trying to get a bare bones website up, those are some options that you can start with. Obviously, if you're wanting to do e-commerce, or if you're wanting to do something a little bit more advanced, then it's going to depend on what you're looking for. You can do custom software as far as, or you can even set up a shop with someone like Shopify, for example. But it really just depends on what the website is supposed to do and what you're targeting as far as solutions you would look for.
That's great. Yeah. So a lot of people are setting up these online e-commerce stores. And I remember back in the day, I had 5 gift stores that were in-person stores. I ended up buying the buildings and shutting down the stores and going to online for a while. And the thing with that was, I had to have the merchandise at home or in the garage, or rent out space for that. I had to it was a lot of work. And now there's ways you can do drop shipping. You can make money in so many ways online that's interesting. And if you have something you're passionate about and you're selling that, and your social media is aligned to that product or that information that people are interested in, beauty products or sports cars or whatever it is, then that's a fun way, because it's expanding on what you already love and enjoy instead of making it a chore or work.
Definitely true.
Yes.
And like I was touching on with SEO, if you do want to get into more depth, you can go as far as things like your H1, H2 tags, you can actually make adjustments for the keywords within the headers. But the more complicated, the more detailed you get, the more, at least in my opinion, you probably should get to a professional at that point. And because I've actually had to fix a client's website in the past. Someone started doing the work and then basically disappeared on them, and they had absolutely no clue how to set anything up, and so they were just kind of trapped. And I don't like it, but unfortunately that does happen sometimes. So
you know, that does happen a lot from my experience and all the coaches and people I work with in that industry that have websites where they pay money and then they don't even get their access to their passwords or anything. You know, they're like, oh, they've got it, and then something happens, and it may not always be malice or bad. It may just be something happened in the programmer's life, and who knows, you know. And then they're out all the money, and they can't even get into their website. They're very frustrated, and I think it makes it difficult for honest people that are doing a great job because people are kind of gun shy. And so what advice would you have for people looking for help on the internet as far as to do background or research, or how to kind of ensure? I mean, obviously keep all your passwords for one. Don't let them have the only passwords. What other advice would you give?
I would say some other important things would be to take the time to have a conversation with whoever you're considering working with, and make sure that you have that you both clearly see how they can benefit you, as well as they get what you need and how they can deliver that solution to you. Because sometimes if you draw that risk of just kind of jumping into a new business relationship without fully understanding, you know, whether that person really is the right fit, then at least in my opinion, I think that can really fall back and backfire and cause some issues later on. So
yeah, I think when you're starting a web page or website, you know, the one thing is you might have a picture in your mind of what you want, and you talk to somebody. So the best thing is, I think, to be very, very detailed, so that you both can see that same picture that you may have in your mind. The programmer can see that picture too, and give you an honest quote and honest information about time, you know, the timeline and what may be needed from them as far as work. You know, what part of the web page is the responsibility of the person buying this, and what's the responsibility of the programmer. I think that's one of the lessons I learned, because it's been interesting. Like I said, I learned WordPress. I think we talked before the show about this. I had to learn a lot of that and spend hours doing this WordPress stuff that I didn't plan on doing when I paid somebody else to do my website. So I ended up doing hours and hours and hours. But so that's important to know. And so now I found you, Jason. I wish I would have found you first.
Yeah, I like making people's lives easier that don't know why the computer glows, but they are glad they can use it. And but it's a lot easier if you have someone who's a little bit too obsessed with the computer, but can kind of make things a little bit, you know, more convenient on you if the computer is not your focal point. So.
Yes. So we are coming to the end of our half hour, and I wanted to make sure that people that are looking to start a website or do some online SEO or whatever are able to connect with you. How can they reach you, Jason?
Easiest places are going to be on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/JasonBaudendistel1. Or also you can reach us at www.wibbets.com. That is WIBBETS. And you can literally just do a Google search for Wibbets Incorporated, and our website should pop up as the first result.
All right. Thank you. Thank you again for being on the show, and we will see you next time. All right. Bye, everyone.
It's my pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.